Evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are still on chapter 1 of book 2. Book 2 is the spirit world, and chapter 1 is spirits. And we did question 118 last week, but we are going to start on it because it's a good question for us to start today. Okay? Philip, can you read 118 and 119?
Certainly.
Thanks.
Can spirits regress? No. They learn what has impeded their progress as they advance. When spirits finish a trial, they learn the lesson of that trial and never forget it. They may remain stationary, but they never regress. 119. Could God exempt spirits from the trials that they must still undergo in order to reach the highest rank? If they had been created perfect, they would not have merited the enjoyment of such perfection. Where would the merit be without struggle? Besides, the inequality that exists between spirits is necessary to develop their personality, and the mission that each spirit accomplishes at each step of their progress is part of God's plan for ensuring the harmony of the universe. Since all individuals may reach the highest rank of social life, we might as well ask, why does the leader of a nation not make every soldier a general? Why are not all subordinate employees made into department heads? Why do all students not become teachers? This is the main difference between life in the social world and that of the spirit world. The first is limited and does not give everyone the opportunity to rise to the top of society, while the latter is unlimited and ensures everyone the possibility of reaching supreme happiness.
Okay. So the first thing here is a reminder, we discussed that last week. One of the natural laws is the law of progress. So a spirit never regress. And again, I want to re-emphasize here because it's something that some religions believe that we can come back and reincarnate as animals or inferior beings. And according to Spiritism, we are always evolving, even when it doesn't look like we are evolving. Even when we, as the Spirit say, they may remain stationary. Even when we remain stationary, we are learning that remaining stationary is not the ideal work, the ideal evolutionary path. So eventually we will get tired of remaining stationary and we will make an effort. So this is important. And again, let's be very careful not to mix the evolution of the spirits with what sometimes people say, oh, I look at the world today and the world seems to be going backwards. The world is not going backwards, first, because if we just have to look at history, again, we cannot compare the world today with 10 years ago, because that's not the way to do it. We have to compare with 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. But the spirits that are incarnating here are always also progressing, but it keeps changing the spirits that are incarnating. So you have 1/3 of the spirits incarnated and 2/3 in the spiritual world. So the spirits will be here, some spirits that are still struggling to evolve and is still more imperfect than the spirits that were here a little bit before. It is possible, but again, the path is always of evolution and all spirits are always progressing, maybe very slowly sometimes, but we are always progressing. Now, the second question, when it talks about, Kardec asks the spirits if God may exempt spirits from the trials that they must undergo in order to reach a higher level. And again, first thing is, trials are challenges that we face to learn, to progress. They are not consequences of our mistakes of the past. This is expiation or atonement. So we live in a world of trials and atonements. Trials are opportunities for us to learn and to progress. Atonements are consequences of our previous mistakes that we have to face the challenge of overcoming here. And then the classic question, right? Why didn't God create us perfect? Right? Which is a question that everybody that starts studying spiritism eventually asks. And the spirits, the answer the spirits give here is they would not have merit the enjoyment of such perfection. And in our limited evolutionary level, we understand a little bit that, and we talk about someone that doesn't go through difficulties in life, you know, are born in a wealthy family, have all the is a wealthy family, is healthy all their lives, don't face any struggles. We look at them, and sometimes these people get completely lost on their own path, right? Because they don't face challenges. On the other hand, we see people struggling from the beginning and making an effort, studying, learning, evolving, and you see that they have a personal satisfaction of having achieved, coming from very difficult situations and have achieved a better situation in life. If at our very limited level of evolution we can see that, we can imagine that you don't want to be a perfect spirit, looking back and thinking that you didn't make any effort, right? Again, it's us trying to interpret what perfect spirits or pure spirits think, and I don't think we are able to do that. And besides that, we are trying to understand God's laws and creations way before we have the capacity. So God created us, as we learned last week, simple and unaware, with all the opportunities through our free will that we keep developing to reach the state of a pure spirit or perfection. On this journey, we learn in the beginning of the journey. We go through the journey making mistakes, trying to learn from our mistakes and not repeating the mistakes. If we repeat the mistakes is when we create karma or atonement for us. If you make a mistake because you didn't know any better, and you learn from it and you move on, there is no consequence for that mistake because it's part of our evolutionary journey. The problem is when we make a mistake and we don't learn from that and we repeat the mistake, that's when we start creating consequences for us, right? Now, the inequality that exists here is because we are all spirits at different levels of evolution. All of us here in a world of trials and atonements are not very different from each other, but we are different in terms of intellectual abilities, in moral qualities. Some have more developed more moral qualities, and then other moral qualities contrary to other people, and intellectual abilities, which is easier for us to see around us and understand. So this inequality is what, at our level, what makes us strive to progress. And we can see that where in places that there is no effort for people to make an effort to work to evolve, the situation in general, the place doesn't progress, right? So Kardec then gives us an explanation talking about the differences we have here: students, teachers, subordinate employees, and soldiers, general, right? We cannot be the same, otherwise, society doesn't work. And then he talks about the differences between social world and the spirit world, talking that, again, one very important difference here, right? When we talk about the evolution in the physical world and the spiritual world, we can evolve both on the spiritual world, on the physical world. But on the spiritual world, we learn the theory of it, right? To put in practice, we have to incarnate. That's why we come to incarnations. It's to put in practice what we have learned both here and there, and see if we really manage to learn the lessons and to be more prepared for similar situations in the future, right? So you are only going to learn if you become patient, if you test your patience, right? If you isolate yourself in a place outside the world where there's nothing to test your patience, no one else to bother you, then you never know if you learn patience. So that's basically what Kardec says. Anything here? No. Any questions, comments? Okay, 120.
Do all spirits travel the road of evil to arrive at good? The road traveled is more like the one of unawareness rather than evilness.
That's a very important question, and a very important distinction that we have to make here, right? Spirits do not necessarily have to be evil. This is a choice based on their free will. Unaware is not evil, right? Again, if you make a mistake because you don't know better, doesn't mean you are evil. So, as the Spirit says here, the road travel is more like the one of unawareness, meaning more spirits are evolving and making mistakes and learning from it through unawareness than by doing evil and facing consequences. It doesn't mean that there is no evil. There is a lot of evil in the world, but evil spirits does not equal evilness in the world, right? Sometimes spirits are committing evil acts out of unawareness and not out of being evil. There are those that are evil, yes. But normally, what we say here, you have followers, right? You have the leaders who are really evil, and then you have the followers that believe they are following the right path or the best path for them. They are not evil per se. They are just unaware of what they're doing. So when they have an opportunity to learn, they'll be able to change faster than those that are evil. You know, you see, those that are evil are those that do something evil and don't regret it, and will do it again if they are given the opportunity. You see a lot of the followers, when they see something that an evil act being committed, sometimes they feel very uncomfortable. They feel very disturbed by it and try to find a way to get out of it. We in our mediumship meetings, many times we talk to spirits that are in this case. They are forced, because they end up in bad places in the spiritual world. They are forced by these leaders of the lower zones to work for them, and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't have the understanding and the knowledge of they don't have the tools to get out of it, and they end up acting in the name of these evil spirits. But once they have an opportunity to free themselves, they embrace the opportunity very fast. Okay, all right.
Yeah, just to remind that the ones that we could label as evil now, it's temporary. Okay, it's very short-lived. Eventually, they will find the path of progress as well. And they are learning that evil is not good while being evil.
Yeah, and again, the law of progress we discussed in the beginning. So no spirits will stay forever. One thing that the only guarantee that we have is that we will change all the time. You know, the only change, the only thing we can guarantee is that we are always changing. So evil spirits or evil people eventually will learn from it. Again, can take a long time, but eternity is very long, right? So sometimes we have a tendency to look at a short period of time and question how this spirit or this incarnated spirit, this person that is doing so much evil, what's the hope for them? Well, it will take longer for them than the average, but all of us, we are all going to reach perfection, and they will also reach perfection, even if we look at them and find it difficult to believe, right? Okay.
120?
121.
121. How is it that some spirits have traveled the road of the righteous and others the road of evil? Do they not have free will? God has not created bad spirits. They were all created simple and unaware, possessing an equal aptitude for good or bad. Those who become bad become so of their own volition.
Again, this is very clear, right? Why some spirits choose the road of righteousness and others the road of evil. We develop, since we are created, since we become individual spirits, simple and unaware, we start developing our free will. And by developing our free will, we start making choices. In the beginning, very basic choices, right? Because we are coming out of the animal kingdom, so we have basically instinct, rudimentary notions of intelligence, and we are just trying to survive. And so procreate, survive, and protect ourselves against the dangers of the world. But as we start learning and using our free will to make our choices, we are going to choose the right road or the wrong road. And again, it's not a straight road. It's a road that has thousands of different options, and each option has a different consequence. And on this spider web of roads, we are going to make mistakes. Now, some learn better, faster, some takes a longer to learn or insist in their wrong paths. So the Spirit says here, those who become bad become so of their own volition. You know, you make a mistake, and we know, we all know stubborn people, right? People that make mistakes and don't recognize their mistakes and insist on repeating their mistakes. You know, I'm like that, I will never change. How many of us heard this phrase before from other people, or even ourselves said that phrase, right? So if you, the one thing that I guarantee is that you will change. Everyone will change. Even if those that really believe they won't change, it will take longer for them to change, but they will change. So because the law is of progress again. So again, the basic concept here is free will. Free will is an opportunity for us to evolve through our own volition, as the Spirit says here. Okay. 122, Philip.
How can spirits possess freedom of choice between good and bad at their origin when they have not yet acquired self-awareness? Is there any principle leading them to either one road over the other? Free will is developed as spirits acquire consciousness. Freedom would not exist for them if they made choices by any means other than use of their will. The causes that determine their choices are not within, but outside of them, via the influences to which they voluntarily yield because of their free will. This choice is represented by the fall of humanity and the concept of original sin. Some spirits yield to temptations, while others resist it successfully. From where do the influences that act upon them originate? From imperfect spirits who seek to dominate them and take pleasure in watching their failures. This temptation is represented metaphorically as Satan. Does this influence only act upon a spirit at its inception? It follows the spirit through all the phases of existence until it has acquired such absolute self-control that vile spirits abandon the attempt to tempt him or her.
Okay, 3 parts here, right? This concept here in the beginning is very important, right? The question is, spirits possess freedom of choice between good or bad. How can they possess if they have not yet acquired self-awareness? As we evolve, we become more self-aware of ourselves, right? An animal in the later stages of evolution, the mammals, they already have some sense of self-awareness, right? They already understand a little bit about themselves, even if they don't show this. When we become individual spirits, we start to develop this self-awareness and use our free will. But again, if there was no free will, if we didn't have the freedom to make our choices, where would be the merit of achieving anything, right? If someone cheats on a test in school, right? They may get away with it, but they haven't learned. So eventually you catch up to them the lack of study and the lack of awareness. So the free will that allows us to choose our own path is what gives us also the merit when we achieve the progress where we are moving forward. Now, since the beginning, we are influenced by spirits, right? As they say when the spirits talk about mediumship. Mediumship existed since the first spirit was incarnated and the first spirit was discarnated, in a sense. The interaction between the two worlds existed for all time. So the spirits from the beginning are susceptible to the influence of the spirits in the spiritual world, depending on how they connect. Of course, what influence can you give to a spirit that is still in a primitive state, right? It's basically saying to them, choose this or that, inspire them to choose this or that, and because they don't really have a lot of understanding of their options. But we like to live in groups, right? That's one of the characteristics of humans, is to, in most, okay, of course, there are exceptions, but we like to live in group. And you can imagine primitive spirits, one of the objectives was to find a male, was to find a female and form a group, right? We could call family, the very rudimentary notions of family, in the end it is, but you can imagine, right, being very basic, right? You have a couple of cavemen, right? And then the male dies. And then the male is there, and he doesn't go far, he stays around because we don't know much to where to go. So we stay around in the forest there. So the male is there seeing what's happening and sees another male trying to take care of his original female companion. And jealousy is one thing that is natural, right? So this spirit tries to influence both the male and the female. Again, a very basic notion in the very beginning, but from that, you can imagine that as we evolve, we are going to have spirits around us. The protecting spirits that we always have, trying to inspire us and motivate us to make the right choices, and the spirits that don't want us to move forward, either because they are enemies from the past, or they are friends from the past that they don't want to evolve, so they don't want us to evolve because misery loves company, right? So, you see that. You have a group, you see in school, right? A group of kids, and one of them decides to study when they all don't study much, and one of them decides to start studying. The others will be on top of this one all the time, trying to prevent him or her from studying, right? Because they don't want to break the groups. That's human nature, right? You expand this to the spiritual world, and you see how the interaction between the spiritual world and the physical world happens, right? You amplify that to enemies. We are evolving. So in the past we were worse. So for sure we betrayed a lot of spirits. We killed maybe some. We were killed by others that we carry this hatred without even being unaware. So all these interactions happens on our evolutionary path, and again, all with their own free will, right? Both there and here. And our interpretations of everything that is happening around us is what made us create these ideas of original sin and spirits resisting to temptation, falling to temptation. And then the last question Kardec asks is if influence only exists at the beginning, and the spirits are very clear that it follows the spirit through all phases of existence until the spirit learn how to free oneself from interferences from inferior spirits. And this not necessarily happens when you are perfect spirit, pure spirit, because at a certain point of evolution, when you are a good spirit, you learn how to protect yourself against influence of less evolved spirits, right? Because you are constantly, as we studied last week, what the characteristic of good spirits is always trying to work to help others. When you are doing that, you reach protection of others, and you prevent influence of less evolved spirits, right? So, but until we get there, we are still going to be subject to the influence of less evolved spirits if we allow our vibrational level to lower and to connect with them. Okay?
This topic is, I find it very complicated, very complex. Later on, Kardec went back to spirits. Where did God write the divine laws? And the answer, in our conscience. So when the spirits answer over here this question by saying that, what is it? I lost.
122.
Yeah, 122. So how can free will is developed as the spirits acquire consciousness? And that's when we become an individualized intelligent principle, when we receive the divine law is imprinted in our consciousness. And now you have to exercise our free will to act in accordance with those laws. Now, and then here you see how Kardec is so methodically put things in the right place. We already passed just finished the part that deals with the classification of the spirits, right? And on the very first class of the spirit, the most ignorant is what? Matter is everything. Matter preponderates above everything else. Then the second class, matter still has some effect, but the spirit preponderates over matter. And then the pure spirit is all about spirituality, right? So in this process of developing ourselves morally is a process of being more in tune with our own conscience, spiritual part, and less in tune with our material part, with the physicality of the body. And that's why we see, as João goes, I say that for historical man was all about the physical life. And we witness someone who is being successful. What does it mean to be successful? To get to the best part of the animal, to grab all the women for himself. What do you think that is being successful? Is being strong, being powerful, and be the one who controls, have control, have power. So if the best piece of the animal, and when it's time to mate, will be the one who will mate with all the female, and you have to be strong and powerful. All about matter. But the divine law is already written in that conscience. It is slow, it takes a long time for us to pay more attention to our conscience and less attention to the material part of us. So what makes us make mistakes, choose the bad path, is because we concentrate all our energy in material conquest.
Okay.
João, I have a question.
Fabio.
When he says here that the causes that determine their choices are not within but outside of them, and then later says that the influences are metaphorically represented as Satan, could you elaborate on what outside of the spirits would be the causes that determine their choices?
Yeah, meaning, the causes are the physical world, right? The choices you make, what you are going to eat, how you're going to protect yourself, how you're going to survive in this world, all these are outside of you, right? Because you cannot choose to live in a place that is not where you are. So that's what they mean by the causes are not within but outside. Every time we are making choices, it's related to situations that we face outside of ourselves, right? A temptation, if we fall into temptation, right? Let's give an example of temptation. You go into you like to drink, you go into a bar, the temptation is the drink. It's not inside of you, right? Your reaction is inside of you. How you're going to deal with the temptation is inside of you. But the cause is outside, is the bottle, right? It's in that sense, if I made myself clear here. I don't know if Elmo, you can give some.
Yeah, I think what I said is part of the answer. That while we are so committed to the materiality, you are looking externally. You are looking to grab the best piece of the animal, You are looking to grab the older woman to make me down. You are looking to grab as much gold and build a castle for myself. It's all external. And we are neglecting to look the internal, because the internal was you have the divine laws in your conscience.
And I think it's represented, if you think of the original sin, Fabio, by the apple, right? And this and the snake, right?
Right.
It's external. They are the external, the temptations and the influence. This is it's an allegorical representation of the temptation, which is external, the apple, right? You shouldn't eat the apple. It's an internal decision, but it's an external cause, right? And the influence, the snake, is external also.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a question.
When Kardec, listen,
Just a second.
when the spirits answer that the influence comes from the spiritual world, it's the imperfect spirits who seek to dominate them. So the question is, where does it come from? From the perfect spirit, the spiritual world to begin with.
Comes also from the last incarnation matter.
It is still seeking domination.
Yeah,
It's still seeking to obtain power through material means.
yeah. Yes, Paco.
Yeah, my question is, when a spirit is created, we say that he's created simple and ignorant. Does it mean that at that point of creation itself, free will is not present? My question.
Yeah, well, it is present in the embryonary stage, meaning it's there to be developed.
So okay, it's present in potential,
Yes, perfect.
but it's not manifested. It's not a free will manifested.
Yeah, in the moment of that it becomes an individual spirit, you are right. The next day is already there because you already made choices, right? You know, how to survive for one day, you already making choice. I'm talking about adult spirit, right? Because
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
you know, when you start, but even as a child, you start to having to make choices that will be based on your free will. But yes, you are correct. But we start developing our free will from moment zero, right?
But we start developing our free will because of the mistakes we make.
No, well, mistakes are after. The free will is to make the mistake, to make the choice. You know,
But we're bound to make mistakes because we're simple, we're ignorant, so we don't have any experience.
so let's see. We're talking about primitive man, right? And that we're talking here. So you have this group of primitive men, and then you see this food that is not enough for two of them.
I'm gonna kill my neighbor. Yes.
They will fight for it. One kill the other. It's
Yeah.
the free will starting to. They didn't need to fight. They could share. We don't have the ability yet to understand that, or maybe we have. But the free will is to go and kill the other so you have all the food for you. So you are using your free will, right?
Okay. Yeah. Theoretically, yes, but there are so many forces in that milieu that would, prevent you from just sitting down and let's cooperate.
Yeah, you are right in the sense that point zero, there is the potential of free will, but no free will. But point 0.1, there is already some free will that was used there. So it started developing.
Yeah.
That's why the spirits use the word develop. Because something that gradually you conquer as you are better able to make use of it. You know, how much free will does a newborn have? Now, if you just put our existence here as all that there is. Basically zero, right?
Mhm.
Now, when it's time to go to the first days of education, the first classes, how much free will does the kid have? Mom, dad are gonna sit down and discuss which school you wanna go to, or you're going to dress? No, right? Mom gonna dress you the way it's supposed to be dressed, and you go to school that the parents chose or can afford, period. Now you're going to high school, now you have more degree of participation on your education now. It's still limited, right?
But it doesn't prevent you from having your own thoughts. You cannot activate your free will, but you think about it. For example, mom tells you to go to one school, you want to go to the other. Of course, you'll go to the one of your parents, but your free will would say, hey, I want to go to the other one.
But you already,
Absolutely right, yeah.
yeah, you already developed some free will, right? You know, if you are comparing to children, right? Your baby, 3 months, what free will does your 3 months old baby has? Almost none, right? Because it cries when it's hungry, when it cannot, when it's unhappy with something, but where is the free will there, right? So if you compare that to the primitive human being, you can see we were babies, right? Now, when he's 1 year old, he's going to have some more. He's going to make some choices already, right? Go to one or the other. But when you are a 3 months old baby, or 1 month or 2 months that you recently experienced, what free will does it have there? It already has, it's there, but it's not developed in any sense.
It's not developed because there's no consciousness. Yes.
Yeah.
To act on it is very limited,
Yeah,
because it prevents you from making great mistakes. That's how the divine laws work, right? Mom is not gonna let you pick up when you are 5 years old what you want to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because it's gonna be M&M's, ice cream, and no breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But mom and dad knows better and say, no, I'll give you a little touch of ice cream if you eat your vegetables, if this and that, right? So it had a free will, it's there. I don't want to eat vegetables, I want to eat ice cream. But if I want to have a little bit of ice cream, I have to go to the vegetables next, right?
So in
It's a process.
freedom is when your free will is related to your act, I would say. That you are matching both together.
yes, in a sense, yes. You know, it's your freedom to act doesn't go hand in hand with your free will, right? Because you may have your free will, but you don't have the freedom to do that, right? Going back to children, right? You are not going to allow a 5-year-old to go alone in the street, to go whenever they want, wherever they want. That's the absolute free will. Is you open the door and they will go wherever they want. What are the dangers of that? Parents will not allow that. So they have free will, yes, but their freedom is restricted to their ability to make better decisions for themselves, right?
I think what makes it difficult to grasp some of these concepts is the fact that free will is associated with consciousness, right? So a spirit in their evolutionary path needs to have already acquired consciousness so they can execute free will at any capacity, even like very small, like a child. So I think the confusion here is, for example, we think about like a newborn, a baby that just came into the world. How conscious is that baby of itself?
Yes.
Because it's a human, it has all the capabilities there, but they don't understand the world. Most of what they do is based on instinct. So that's what I believe. Right? So I understand what David is about, doctor. So I don't believe that a newborn is conscious
No, it's not.
yet
Yeah.
of its existence and aware of the world. So at that point, so whatever the parents do, any external factors will dictate what that baby is going to do. So my confusion is when does this shift happen? So at what age or at what point do we get a say on what we're going to do? Because when a newborn starts crying because it's hungry, there's no other option for that baby except for crying until it gets food, right? So at what point the human starts to be able to make decisions?
It depends the external factor as well, because there's always this school where we learn about the wild kid. I don't know if you have heard about this experience. It was not an experience. It was a kid that was abandoned in the forest and raised by the wolf. And basically, he was found at the age of like maybe 10 or 12, but it was too late. He would be never able to speak properly and etc. and self-conscious. So at the end of the day, there is not really an age. It's really related to the external factor, the education,
Yeah,
influence that you receive.
on average, we can talk about average, right? On an average, it will be somewhere between 1 and 2 years old, or, you know, I think well, a 1-year-old is already kind of beginning of being self-aware. You know, it looks at the mirror and it knows it's oneself, right? But it doesn't really understand. For instance, I joke whenever you have a birthday party for a 1-year-old, I said it's the only birthday party that they don't understand is their birthday party. With 2, they already understand it's their birthday, but with 1, they don't yet, right? So at 1, there is no fully consciousness, but there is already some rudimentary notions of consciousness there.
So at that point, that little baby has some free will.
It has, because it moves around, or it starts walking, goes where they want to walk, right?
It chooses, yeah, to go to one place.
Yeah,
Yeah, my son chooses a toy that, you know, a stuffed animal, isn't that?
yeah,
It's a start.
it's a start. Yeah, it's starting to develop. Again, it starts developing on day 1, right? But you know, it's just that we don't have the ability to analyze what is the free will of a 1-day-old baby, right? But it already has more than day 0, right? But it's 2 for us, we can't. But you gave a very good example. 3 months old already choosing which toy they want, so it's already free will, right?
Maybe one, I think I watched a documentary on Netflix about babies, and until the point where they did IRM on the brain of the baby, like 3 months old, I think, MRI, sorry. The doctor before that, they thought it was reflex, you know, when the baby, they move their arms like this. And actually there is activity in the brain that says that it's voluntarily, they move. So even at this age, it's
deliberate, yeah,
yeah.
so they choose to do certain.
there is a brain activity linked to movement.
Yeah, which is, you know, there is a very interesting article that came today on the Washington Post. I mentioned to Luisa, you know, one of the headlines of the Washington Post, the title of the article is The Children Who Remember Their Past Lives. It's very interesting. And the first example is a 2-year-old girl talking about her previous existence in a concentration camp. Yes, she says the name of the child, Nina, and what she was struggling with in the, you know, abandoned or separated from the family. She talks about the number that she had on her arm. And you see the article, and you know, you read the article and said, yeah, you don't want to believe in reincarnation, welcome, right? Because then there is no more. But again, a 2-year-old. So you see that there is already a level of consciousness, of understanding, of expression oneself. But again, how much of a free will can a 2-year-old use? It's limited to their, you know, yeah.
I think this is the term free will that boggles me, because people have their own tendencies, right? People do things without thinking, without deliberately choosing to do those things.
But that's instinct. No, it's not free will.
So what's the difference between an instinct? So if I have a certain tendency as a little kid of going towards light or a certain color, I'm not choosing, oh, I'm not thinking as a 1-year-old, oh, I like that color, therefore I'm gonna walk towards it. No, it's like, I'm drawn to it. So it's almost
Free will is a choice.
Yeah, so how much of that is a choice?
You have to separate
By-
instinct, right? You
Yeah.
have the autonomic functions, your
So,
heartbeat, you don't control all that. Instinct, you have some sort, it's impulses, it's something that you can educate and try to control. Free will is when you make a choice. When if you are attracted and run towards something by instinct, it's not your free will. It's an
many
instinct.
kids do things that
Our
you can't
instinct
explain.
is our instinct,
So
it's
maybe
not
that's
free will.
not free will at that point, maybe.
But
When
when,
your instinct is a choice as well.
but when, going back to the 3-month-old baby they have, right? When you put two choices there and he chooses one, that's free will. It's already right?
That's influenced by many factors, but.
Yeah, if you put only one toy, the instinct, they'll grab the toy because there is no other option, there's no free will.
It's a weird analogy because if you think of an animal, like for example, a cat, and you give like two options, an apple and a piece of chicken. It's going towards chicken because it's carnivore. Is that free will?
No,
That's an instinct.
animals,
That's-
it's an
They
instinct.
don't have consciousness.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
right?
Animal is instinct, but animals, this type of animal already have rudimentary signs of intelligence.
Yes.
Because you can teach them things, so they have to have some intelligence to learn.
So the intelligence is like a precursor to the free will, so that leads to consciousness.
Yes,
I think that link, like when one thing stops and the other one starts, it creates the confusion.
yeah, and again, we always have the limitation of words, right? And definition of words that
Yeah.
prevents us from fully sometimes explaining and understanding the whole concepts, right?
We have, in psychology, you have the Maslow's and you have the Ericksonian stages of development. And to that extent, you could say that there's a free will in a limited, very limited fashion. For example, if you take the first stage, which is what indicate as the trust and mistrust, because remember, when the kid is born, there's no distinction between himself and the world. Okay, it's called participation mistake. Himself and the world is one. And slowly, he develops the identity, individualization. But at the very beginning, it's trust and mistrust, whom to trust and whom not to trust. And in that sense, you could say, yes, even the kid is also making choices. It's a very rudimentary position, but you can say, yes, it's making a choice.
Yeah, again, free will exists there, as you said,
Even there, it's
the potential and the
Yes.
development starts on day 0, day 1, right?
on day one.
Yeah, but-
Even if you
again-
look, if you look at the development in terms of those early stages, in terms of just trust and mistrust, following that theory, the baby is making a choice.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah, in
Yeah.
terms of free will, trying to put together the metaphysical with psychology.
I think that we got lost here in the discussion when we use our chronological aging from newborn to the progress as an analogy to the spiritual progress. And we deviated the topic of discussion to be spiritual progress. And when I start discussing human being progress from being born and so forth and so on. I think his original question was more, where does the free will start as an eternal spirit? Was that like what you're looking for?
Because
Not really, because if you understand the spirit world, we know that a baby right now could be like a millennium spirit that has reincarnated multiple times. And that temporary stage of is just a stage because its journey is going to continue after the baby grows, right? But when you just look at a singular example of like free will associated with consciousness. So that's what's a little confusing to me, because sometimes, bad things happen to babies, but that's not because that baby made a bad choice at that moment. Because if you look at the entire timeline of multiple reincarnations, that could be a part of a bigger plan. So those are two separate things. But my point is, so when is that little baby going to start to be responsible for the choices that they made, right? So maybe that's not even important to this topic right now, but it's just a curiosity.
Yeah, but I understand. But I think the important thing is to discuss the eternal spirit. The answer is free will develops with consciousness.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
It tells us there was one part of us before consciousness that we did not have free will. So that's the period where, let's say, the intelligent principle, going through all those stages to develop ourselves to reach a point, whatever that point is, and whatever God decides now, you graduated, so to say, as an intelligent principle. Now we're going to start a new stage. Now we're going to be an individualized intelligent principle.
A spirit.
A spirit.
It becomes a spirit.
Here you receive the laws. The divine laws going to be imprinted in the conscience. And with this, we start to have an ability of make some decisions, minimal decisions, because your intelligence is still very, very undeveloped as well. And all that you care right now is about the physical. You still have to develop yourself to mature. So at that moment, when whatever that moment is, and that's what I thought the question was in the beginning, when does free will start? Free will start at the moment that you receive the imprinted laws in your conscience.
Which happens at a mysterious stage of, that's one of the only unanswered questions of the Book of Spirits. Is
One of many.
what exactly happens between like intelligent principle and
And
spirit?
spirit.
So what happens here in this moment?
Yeah.
So that's the big mystery that we can't.
Yeah, you won't find a clear answer, even in the works of André Luiz in Evolution of Each Worlds. There is no direct answer to that. And I'm sure there is a reason for that. I don't think we don't have the ability to understand the language to explain, but it's still something that we will have to find out. We will find out later, but not yet. Okay.
It is fascinating, so I'll tell you that.
So
This
interesting.
is fascinating, yes.
We ran out of time, Philip.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Wonderful.
Okay, so next week we start on question 123. But before we go to our final prayer, just a reminder here of what we have this weekend. The first thing is, not this Saturday, next Saturday, we have an event here called Science and Spiritism. It's a Saturday from 3 to 6 p.m. here right across SGNY, where they're having a dance class at the moment.
When is that? When is that again? Say it again?
May 11,
May 11. I have to write
which
that.
is Saturday from 3 to 6 p.m.
May
Okay.
11, 3 to 6.
You need to register, but I told Zoraida, and I'm going to repeat here, if you didn't register and you want to come here directly without registering, just bring the $20 fee that is the entrance, and that's fine, okay?
Okay.
It's called Science and Spiritism. It will be consisted of two lectures from Dr. Alexander Moreira Almeida, which is the top spiritist scientist that we have nowadays in Brazil. He just published a book called Science of Life After Death, and that's going to be his presentation here. He's coming
Wow.
here to New York to present the book at Columbia University and at the psychiatric convention that they have next week here. And he's going to talk to us on Saturday. And his wife, Dr. Angelica Almeida, is going to talk about the work that she's doing, the so-called Project Allan Kardec, Rescuing the Origins of Spiritism, which is a very interesting project where they're studying, trying to recover letters, articles that belong to Kardec, and they were never published or never found, and doing some research on the things and trying to recover all this material. So it's a beautiful work. They have a website and everything. She's going to talk about that. Okay. So this Saturday we have a lecture on the United States Spiritist Federation by Livia Uehara. She's going to talk about willpower, self-discipline, and character reformation. This Saturday 11 a.m. And this Sunday is the first Sunday of May, so we are going to study back to the book Between Heaven and Earth. We are in chapters 27 and 28, where we're going to talk about the reincarnation of Julio. Book club, Paul and Stephen, if you haven't joined yet, still time. They are going to talk about chapter 5 next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Okay? Can you do our final prayer, Carol, please?
Yes, thank you very much, John and Elmo and everyone for being here this evening. Thank you, Philip, for reading. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Part 2, Chapter 1, entitled The Progress of Spirits. The natural laws state that as individual spirits, we are always progressing, never regressing. We are created simple and unaware, and we develop through trials and atonements. Spirits do make mistakes. However, they can learn through their errors. There is free will and a choice to evolve through volition and through each phase of evolution. Eventually, we will become perfected spirits through self-awareness. The divine laws are written within our consciousness. There are challenges and situations in the material world especially that may influence our choices and self-control. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected by day and by night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of service, and of charity, which is love in action. May peace prevail. So be it.